Toyota and electric vehicles, they go together like oil and water. They just don't seem to mix. Which is funny because Toyota was super early on into the world of electrification. Think the Prius. The Prius is over 20 years old now. It was one of the first mass-produced vehicles to incorporate a high-voltage battery and a high-voltage electrical system to help propel you down the road. But we're in 2021, and if I go to my Toyota dealership pretty much anywhere in the world, I'm not going to find a battery electric vehicle. Now, that isn't to say they've tried in the past. There was the very first generation Toyota RAV4 electric, and then there was the second generation Toyota RAV4 battery electric as well. That was the one in partnership with Tesla, and I think if you read between the lines, Toyota got pretty much screwed on that deal. So ever since then, we've heard nothing about a full electric from the maker of the Prius and the Prius Prime. But that changes today because behind me is a ground-up EV. It's called the Toyota C+Pod Plus, C+Pod, something like that. But this itty-bitty Toyota is fully electric. It's probably not what you're expecting though, because that all-electric Tacoma or Tundra or whatever that you've been looking forward to is still a whiles out, I think. And this little guy is not coming to the US. This small two-seater electric vehicle is coming to Japan. And it is, currently it's going to be sold to businesses and governments on more or less a trial period before being introduced into the public next year. That isn't to say I am not excited about this little guy because I love small electric vehicles. We've owned a 2014 Smart Electric Drive, one of my favorite vehicles of all time. Small, nimble, great in the city, super cheap to run because it's electric, and couldn't recommend it enough. And if you look at this little Toyota, it's kind of on the same lines. Now, two-seater. Not a big battery, a 9.1 kilowatt hour battery. To put that into perspective, the very first generation smart car electric drive that we got here in the US, that had something like a 17 or 18 kilowatt hour battery. So, you're not going to go very far or very fast in this little Toyota. Now, funny enough, they are estimating a range of 93 miles. That is, of course, not EPA. That is on a different cycle to what we use in the States. But if that's true, that's pretty darn good for a little itty-bitty runabout built for the city. Power, 9 kilowatts, about 12.5 horsepower. Top speed, 37 miles an hour. Once again, not a vehicle to be cruising down America's freeways, but Japan, they've got small roads, tight roads, low speed limits in many cases, and 37 should be plenty to get a lot of Japanese consumers where they need to go. Exterior design, it looks a little bit like a shoe. I'll be the first to admit it, but it does have full LEDs, both front and rear. I do like the two-tone contrasting thing they've got going on. And it is, not horrible looking. I don't think it's any worse looking than a smart car. Stepping inside, a lot of black plastics, but simple and minimalist. It's got very basic seats, a few controls in the center, a central gauge there for your speed, and a steering wheel. Apart from that, it's a car. It'll get you places, and that's all it needs to do for its intended purpose. What about price? Well, it's not as cheap as you might expect. When you do the conversion rate, it's about $16,000 US. Which is a lot of money for a car that'll do 37 miles an hour, but of course it's a different market, different perspective on vehicles, and it is good to see that Toyota is at least trying. They're trying something to introduce a battery electric to this world. Now, of course, Toyota has the Toyota Mirai and the RAV4 Prime and all their hybrids. They are very familiar with adding electrons to vehicles, but a full electric that we're going to see here in the US, I think is still a little whiles out, and I can almost guarantee it's not going to be the size of a toaster. Well, as always, this has been Tommy, a quick video here at TFL Now. Check out TFLcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.